Checking out our channel. There's going to be a repair video, or hopefully a repair video, on a Fi-Shock SS-1000 Super Shock. So this is a solid state unit, not a low impedance model, which means that parts are slim on it for one. Low impedance units have been around, 50 years, 40 years or whatever, but they weren't commonplace. Gallagher was the one that really brought the low impedance to the market here in the States back in the early 70s. But everybody back then, brand-wise, most of them were still doing either weed burner stuff or solid state. And then eventually everybody jumped on board with low impedance now. But there's a few, Fi-Shock about the last brand that was around that was still making solid state stuff. I don't know how old this unit is. This has got to be probably 20-some-year-old unit. Parts are pretty slim on it. They made a few different models that look like this. Similar parts on the inside through all of them. Just some have more lights. More lights than others. Basically, how they still click and pulse and thump like a low impedance unit does, but it didn't have that like extra reserve power to really push the load real far down the line, because the farther out you go, more wire you're pushing through, so the more resistance. So low impedance has really low impedance inside itself, so it doesn't really get dragged down too much further out it goes, and it handles loads a lot better. These don't handle, they handle some loads, but more distance you go, or the more aggressive on the fence, the weaker the shock would be. So they're basically on a clean run of fence, you'd get all the shock in the world, or not quite enough, that sort of thing. So we're going to take a look at it, see if we can get it going. I don't know what we can do with it. Let's try to fix the board if we can on the inside, or we're going to have to just maybe retrofit something in there. But with it being solid state, you have to use solid state boards or a solid state transfer made for a solid state unit. Low impedance boards, while it would work and make the unit click, the transformer's not wound it the same way, and so the output voltage won't be nowhere near what it's supposed to be, because it's not wound the same way. The windings aren't set up the same. So before we plug it in, I'm just going to take the screws out that are in this thing, and then we'll take a peek on the inside. Whoa. I think these were still made when Fi-Shock was its own brand, I believe. So they got bought out, acquired by Zariba and those guys quite a long time ago. But I think they kept this variation of unit around with the Fi-Shock name on it for a long time. There's the inside. Not much to it. It's got a circuit board with a capacitor built onto the board, and a big old transformer coming out. And there's a little protection thing over here for lightning protection for the fence and ground, like a little suppressor type thing. Sometimes these things will go bad because it got hit by lightning, but it won't keep the rest of the unit from working. It's just that has a lot to do with the board and capacitor and transformer. Let's before we plug it in, let's do just some initial test on it. Make sure that the the fuses are good. With the cotton detector right here. That fuse is good. Go down here. That fuse is good. So should be able to get power. We'll check the capacitor right here. This is a 100 microfarad capacitor. There is a polarity to it, I believe. Yeah, these have polarity to them. A lot of the newer units, the capacitors that they have in there, do not have a polarity. This is 100 microfarad and reading 103, so it's a little off, but good enough to do something. We'll check these little diodes. Oops. Good. Good. Check this SER. So that's all good. So that would be the key things that would really shut it down. There's some little resistors and other doodads there, but things that would shut it down more often are still good. So let's check the primary, the transformer, which is these two wires here. These should be 0.1 to 1 ohm. 0.3, so primary is fine. So in theory, And I can pull the board off, flip it over, see if there's anything burnt on it. In theory, this thing should work. But we'll see what happens. The terminal bolt down here at the bottom is all broken. If it broke in shipping or whatever happened. Well, let's plug it in. See if it does anything. Of course not. Oh, there it goes. Well, for a second, it sounded fun, sounded like it arced when it pulsed. I don't see nothing smoking. Plug it into a different outlet where I get better connection. Let me plug it into this one right here. Oop. Arcing on. A little bit of smoke coming out of it, but it's arcing on these two wires I plug on the board, so it probably needs new spade connectors on it, so that might be all that's wrong. Let's get, these have those smaller spades on there, so we need these ones here, smaller size than standard spade connectors. So we'll pull those wires off, and because these two tabs right here and those two tabs are electrically tied together on the back side. That was real loose too. So that one looks pretty good. Let's just move it over to the other contact. This one here, that's loose too. And that one's burnt, so that's probably most of the cause, so I don't know how that happened. But we'll put a new one on. So it's a single strand side there. Put that up inside there, we'll get the crimping tool out. And we'll put on the opposite one versus what it was on before. Something that's actually clean. It says those other two terminals aren't being used. And it is missing a couple screws, whoops, that hold this board down. You can see the board kind of flopping around there. Just a couple screws. There's one up here, or two up there. There's supposed to be one here and one there. So if I don't have a screw that'll fit that, we might move this one over to there, so at least it's got two screws in the corners there that are holding it. But let's plug this in here and see if it calms down a little bit. Nope. I saw it spark over there too. So let's do a little bit deeper. Let's get the screwdriver out. We'll pull the board out. I think it's all connection related. That one's stripped out. Now it's actually broken right there. So that screw mount there is broken. Oh yeah, it's capacitor's good, but the solder joint right there is bad. Let me show you. Let me get the camera out of the holder here. See that terminal right there? Black one in the middle there. That's because it's bad solder joint. So what we're going to do is we're going to desolder that black one, the black that was all burned up at, clean it up, or clean up the lead on the capacitor. We're going to move it over to the solder joint that's right above it. We're going to put it over there, or drill a hole next to it and then run it over to the one next to it. One way or another, we're not using that. Probably not going to reuse that soldered spot just because it's. I mean, clean it up, but maybe the solder may not stick there very well, so we probably not going to reuse it. Put this board like that so it kind of stays put for me. We'll get our desoldering braid out, or solder wick, whatever you want to call it. Let's get the solder iron powered up here. It's up to, you get up to about 800 degrees, we'll be ready to go. Alright, so now we'll take the solder iron, we'll heat the solder up here. We could probably just add solder there, but with it being black and burnt like that, solder doesn't like to stick to that type of stuff. Okay, see if that's enough to pull the pull the board, or pull that capacitor lead out of the board here. Yep, pull it out of there. And see, it's burned up on there a little bit too. And the lead itself, let's straighten it out here. Okay, let's let's get our small drill bit, which is right here. Then we're going to, that's the right size. Yep. So, try to be careful here because I don't want to touch this capacitor and it bite me. Okay, I can't put it in the hole. I did want to put it, drill a hole through that one, but this capacitor is long enough that it covers up that spot there. So what we'll do is we'll drill a hole like over here and shove the lead through it, and hopefully just bend the lead over and touches that one. I'm not even gonna bother soldering that one just because of the crap that's on there. It might be okay, honestly. See, I didn't take any more to solder off there real quick, and maybe we'll just reuse that one. Let's see how good or bad it looks like after we heat it up a little bit. So if we take off any more to solder and gunk that's on there. Yeah, that actually looks really good, honestly. Okay, so I think we'll actually reuse that spot because it actually looks really clean. Once I desolder on there, you can see there's a little residue from the desoldering braid because it's got like flux, rosin, resin stuff in it that helps the heat transfer. So that's on there, but that's not a deal breaker. Let's get those snips back out here. I'm going to snip off a little bit of the end of the capacitor where I've been arcing at. Let's hope that it's long enough. Come on. I don't think it's going to be long enough to reach into that board. Nope. Okay, so we have to do a different thing. We're going to reuse the capacitor though, because it's good enough to work. If it was reading like 60 or 50 or 90 or a lot lower number, then of course I probably would not reuse it. I'd replace the capacitor, and I've got. I have to look. I don't know if I got them in stock or not. I'm going to take a solid piece of wire. These like 22 gauge, 20 gauge wire. Pretty small stuff, but it doesn't need to be great big. There's not a lot of current running through the thing. So for this application, small gauge wire is fine. So let's add a little solder to the iron to tin it, and then we'll go over here. We'll add some solder to this wire. And we'll go to get over here. Don't need all this, but I'm gonna tin this wire here. Let's put a nice coating of solder on it, and then might have to drill that hole out just a little bit. Yeah, we'll drill that out just so that way this wire can fit in there. There's plenty of solder pad left over, so a small hole ain't gonna make. It's not gonna chew up a lot of the solder or the pad there. So now stick that in like that. come on, stay put. And then we'll heat both the pad up and the lead coming through. Let it harden up, cool off. Oops, snip off the excess on it. Flip this back over to here. There's plenty of lead there. And then we'll bend this down. Hopefully. I need to maneuver this a little bit. Bend that back, bend that down. Squeeze them so they kind of stay together somewhat. And then we should be able to just add a little solder to the iron. Hold them close together. Since they both have solder, should be able to heat them both up. Oh, just basically fused together there. There we go. So it looks pretty good now. Like one solid piece there. Alright, let's pull the screws out. Well, and I'm looking here, there's 4 screw mounts for this board. There's one there, one there, one there, one there, one there. Well, it looks like the only one that's still attached to anything is this one. This is broken, and that's broken. That's probably why there's only 2 screws in the thing. Start with, this is cheap plastic and it's old, brittle. I've seen other brands that are older than this that are better quality, that the plastic's still pretty, it may be faded, but it's not brittle and broken. This is, 20-plus-year-old type stuff, and it's cheap plastic to start with, so it doesn't last forever. If there's any other, what's this little hole there? Is that I don't want to make that fit. This screw will fit in here, and maybe we can drill a hole in the board and screw the board right there too, because that will give us at least 2 spots for the board to be mounted to. Come on, so I'm getting bit by the capacitor. Let's get this board. Come on. Unless we have to turn the board cockeyed like that in order for it to halfway work. Because if we put it where where it's straight, it's going to screw holes basically right over this spot here, in this area there. And you want to put a metal screw right there. Let's see if I can drill like a pilot hole. I don't think that's gonna. It's not gonna work there. I'm kind of guessing where I'm at right now. Okay, I gotta scoot it over just a smidge. I think that's going to work. Get just a little bit bigger drill bit to make the hole bigger. Right over it. let's take screw. Where's that? There we go. Now the bore's nice and tight in there, and looks kind of funky being cockeyed in there, but it's functional. It keeps it in place and keeps it from bouncing around. All right, let's plug it in, see if the arcing goes away and the thing's more steady. Here we go. There it goes, clicking nice and steady, and a little light in the front's clicking along. Let's put our fence tester across it. Let's unplug it. Because these saws, they got to be a little bit careful. They'll jump an arc out of the thing pretty hot and bite you on accident when you're not wanting it to. So I'm going to grab this wire here, my tester, with a pair of pliers. Give myself a little extra insulation. Plug it in here. Fence to ground. $16,000 volts. Look at that. They're high voltage, and then I mean the spark get a throw is like a half-inch spark out thing, but it can't handle a load, long distance or a lot of grass. So, but for small setups, it does fine. In clean fence, it does fine. So this piece here is broken, but what we'll do is we'll get some 2-part epoxy. I think I've got some here. We'll mix some of that up. That's this Permatex gel epoxy. It's 2-part epoxy. I like it because it doesn't run and self-level. It's just where you put it, usually stays. We'll put a little dab here. Over here on the left hand and right hand side, we'll clean up a little bit. We'll put it right there, because once we put the epoxy on and hold it there for a little bit, like maybe a minute, it should harden up enough to where it'll stay, and I can let go of it, because it kind of stays on its own, but of course it pulls right off. So we'll do that. But this unit is basically done, so like to subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. Watch, I'm going to do the epoxy in off camera. No point in showing you that. Just mix it up on a little piece of paper, cardboard, or something, and we'll mix it up real good. Dab some there, spread some there, push it in place, hold it for a little bit, and pull it away. And this stuff, I like this stuff because it's not real runny, and it's pretty good stuff. Once you give it about 24 hours, it's hard as a rock. And I think it'll be basically in there permanently. There's information again, so if you need to check us out, about who we are, what we do, there's information right there. Like I said, there's links down in the description area below to our websites as well. Until next time, see you guys later on, and have a good rest of your day.